talking a little bit about how we got started, and I think that a lot of people and business owners get worried about this, and this is probably young business owners, but also people who get kind of stuck at a certain point, hit a ceiling, getting nervous to bring on leverage.
All business owners then.
Yeah.
Everybody gets stuck at
And
some
it's
point.
crazy how often we hear people that are shocked by the fact that we have the staff that we have, and people get nervous. They don't want to hire an employee for sure. Some of them get even nervous to even pay for leverage to help their business grow. And we're intentional about, I don't want to say lucky because I don't think it's luck. I think we're very intentional about hiring the right people and creating clear expectations. And
We do our best.
Yeah. I mean,
Our best.
we all struggle. But I want to talk about some things that we do internally that allow us to be able to have success with the people that we've hired. And I think that I have come up with 5 or 6 of those things. And if y'all have some other things that I'd like to hear. But I think the business owners that we do business with and in our community can really gain a lot of insight on what we've done in order for us to be able to have scaled where we're at in the 2 years that we've been operating. Because at this point, we are 365 days, times 2, that's whatever that number is, 2 years in. We have 20 plus employees, 27 employees. And so, I think that one of the main things is that from the very beginning, when we were creating our business plan and our operating system, we were very intentional about creating a clear set of expectations for our employees. And we've gotten better about it. There's no doubt.
It's a work in progress because you have to build the muscle.
For sure. But the People Analyzer tool, I think from the very beginning, coupled with our hiring process, allows us to bring somebody in and make sure they're the right person for the role and hold them accountable to a clear set of expectations. And I think communication is one of the biggest things. If you communicate the way that people want to be communicated to, which is based on this assessment, and you use clear expectations like our People Analyzer tool, I think it really makes a difference in our hiring and keeping people around that are happy and understanding and clearly know what we expect from them.
So let's dumb down to what a people analyzer is, right? Because that's just part of language that we use within our company. But it's really just a written job description with KPIs, key performance indicators that you expect from someone, and your set of values so that they know that that's an important, aspect of how they present themselves at their job on a daily basis. So shouldn't necessarily get caught up in the labeling of it, but just making sure that, one, you can actually define what the person's role is. Because I think a lot of times when businesses come to Becky or I, they don't even have, one, a foundation for making decisions within their business. So without that foundation, they're just kind of shooting from the hip, and that's why they have that indecision fatigue. And 2, they know they need help, but they cannot identify the points of leverage because they haven't spent the time to say, okay, what am I good at? What do I like doing? What do I not like doing? What is suffering in my business? And again, going back to not having that decision-making capability to really spend the time, narrow those things down. Only then can you figure out, okay, this is the exact point of leverage and build it out. And the other challenge is people want to hire and fit their business model around people rather than creating the business and then finding the person that fits within that utopian business that they've created. So forcing yourself to actually build a structure first, I think is key, and that you really have to push people back to that.
Yeah. And that looks like for us practically having an organizational charter, accountability charter, whatever you want to call it, that describes the role that we have within our organization that's going to allow us to get to where we want to go. And that's not getting us where we want to go in the next 6 months. That's getting us where we want to go in the next 10 years. And filling those seats with who you have available to you at the beginning, which was the 4 of us pretty much. But building out the responsibilities within each seat of your accountability and organizational chart to be able to replace yourself with the right person whenever they came across, whenever they came available to you. And
and identifying what you're going to do within that year time frame, right? Because sometimes, like some people, that 10-year picture is so exciting to them, and then I can watch other entrepreneurs and they turn in, and they're great business people, great service-minded or product business people, but that scares them. And so being able to take that big vision, but bring it down into this is what's going to go into action within that first year, and how we're going to fill those seats within the first year, hugely important. And likewise, again, you have your 10-year vision people, but then you have the one person that's been working by themselves in their business by themselves, and you tell them, build me an organizational chart and start with all of the hats that you wear, and they can't even conceptualize, like, I am just me. And that's when you have to, again, just force and push back to remove people from the situation and say, how does the business function? What are all those hats?
So the expectation is set from the people analyzer, but the accountability chart and the way that we talk about that a lot is single point accountability.
Amen.
Meaning that
So important.
it's not like teamwork being our value can get skewed in the idea that everybody kind of helps each other out, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we have single point accountability, meaning that each responsibility and role, each seat on our chart is accountable to the task that we've given them. And if things don't go well, then we hold them accountable to the fact that they signed the people analyzer at the beginning. And we just went through this with one of our employees. He went on vacation and he did not address something that was part of his seat. And we identified that at the meeting and we addressed it with him, and we're holding him accountable to that in a way of just like reminding him that's his responsibility. And ultimately, the problem gets solved because there's clear expectations. We're open to having hard conversations, and we know we can point to the clear expectations we set on our accountability chart that he knows now next time he goes on vacation, that's going to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was so easy to see it as a successful conversation because it wasn't a surprise to him. So again, it shows that we checked the box and we were successful in showing him that you own this, right? And you are, again, another value is leadership. You are leading that by owning that task. We were just showing him a little practical way to apply it. And so if you're willing to do that, that's part of an operating system. That is what helps with consistency and continuity. And only then can you actually see growth.
Yeah.
I think the question that people have the most trouble with is when do I hire? How do I know when it's time?
When you're crying on your knees at night, I can't do it.
Well, I think the point, and one of the things I think too that has allowed us to know when it's the right time for us, we have a standard in which we have set for our work to be completed, and the standard in which we want our work to be done, and we're a feeling we want our clients to have. And so, especially on the title side, whenever it's coming to hiring, there's clear expectations on the volume in which each person can handle. And when we get above that number, then we know that, okay, it's time over, an average number of days, not, after a week of having that happen, over months of that happening. Like, okay, well, then we can replace our contractors with somebody internally, or the team comes to us and says, hey, I feel as though I'm at that point. I need to bring on some leverage. And, and from the law firm, similar, once you have enough volume coming in where the people that you have feel as though they can't get their work done within a day, you can feel it. The team lets you know. And then it's time to, okay, you know, to find the right next person. So, but taking a step back, right? Like clear expectations on a people analyzer and plugging somebody into the accountability chart means that you've hired the right person. And I think there's something to our hiring process as well that also is helpful. And so when we bring on somebody in an organization, we use the DISC assessment. I guess the number one thing we ask anybody to do, because not only are we looking for somebody that is a value fit, but also somebody that fits the role on our accountability chart based on experience, skill, and their behavioral style, able to do the role the way we want them to, or the way that they're naturally going to be inclined to do the job. So I think that it's important to also talk about our hiring process, and we're going through the hiring process right now. And so when we were identifying somebody, like what was the things that you were looking for the role that you were looking to hire for the law firm?
I think one of the biggest things we did,
ready for that.
we figured out first, if you recall, like what type of personality we're going to need for it, right? You start with, again, the role, not the person. So what do we need this person to do? What issues, what holes do we need patched? You make that job description and say, what type of person would best fit that? So, like, we already have somebody in mind. We don't know what color hair they're going to have, what color eyes they have, right? This tall or short.
Boy or girl.
Whether it's a boy or girl. We like both. Apparently, the law firm likes girls and the title company likes boys, and I ain't pointing that out. But we figure that out before we're even there. So, like, when we say, okay, we're sending you this DISC assessment, it's not because, yes, we want you to learn more about yourself. We want to learn more about you. But, like, we're looking for a particular type of person. And that's not to say that people can't train themselves to operate outside of their natural behaviors. It just means that it's not sustainable long term. And so do you want to put that stress on your body? Sometimes the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you find somebody that's truly talented. Both of you are self-aware enough to look each other in the face and be like, all right, John, you got to do this. And this is not what you want to do, but can you do this for this amount of time to get where we want to be? And then you get to go off into the sunset. And if both of you have that agreement, that's fine. But never should you have somebody unaware, because anybody can come in, especially certain type of personalities, and I could do anything, right? And then you put them in a role and they're making themselves miserable for 10 years. We've watched decades of people do that are retiring out of industries that took a toll on them rather than, and I'm not a huge like YOLO fan. I still think you got to grind and put in the time, but do it in something that you're passionate about, that you're excited to go do every day. And that has to do with choosing a job that fits your natural personality. Yeah. So we're essentially helping the workforce and ourselves.
We have honest conversations with people whenever they come in and they're trying to fit into a role that they may not fully naturally be inclined to fit in. It's like, you're going to struggle in this role. We want you to know that ahead of time for these reasons, and we're going to still hold you accountable to the standard that we set and the roles being done, but we really want to make sure that you understand that this is not going to always be easy for you for these reasons. And self-awareness is the easy thing to talk about for us, but we want to make sure that those people are also self-aware, because when we give them that DISC assessment and you get somebody come back and be like, I don't agree with any of this, you're like, it's just because something is not always going to be, painting you in the best light, or you say you might have a struggle or challenge. It can be accurate, and it can be something that if you're self-aware, you can use to your advantage, as opposed to not having the humility to acknowledge it.
Yeah. No, the DISC assessment's definitely not the end all be all.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Because a person's experiences, you could be in the same exact cell on the chart and still you're a totally different, unique human that God created.
And you're going to have different values, too.
You're going to have different values. And that's based on your upbringing, your past leadership. What is an example of leadership to you? All of those things matter, when we're bringing somebody in. So that's where, to me, the interview process is just vastly different from what you've seen in a typical hiring process, in corporate America. I want to know way less about what you do every day with your job and way more about you as a person and the experiences that you've gone through. And there's a certain amount of grit that we found has been created. So we almost get excited when we're like, oh, this person has not been through anything. Like they have a lot to go through. And then you come in, you start talking to them and they're like, oh, this terrible thing happened to my family. And it's like, okay, tell me about that. And like, if you watch them and see how they learned from it, how they grew from that experience, I'm like, I want that person on my team.
Yeah. So again, just keeping this in order from the hiring process, using the DISC assessment, meeting with somebody, getting to know them, helping them run through the DISC assessment so they know more about themselves, showing them what the role and responsibility are going to be. And I think that it's also critical when we walk away from that first interview, we always ask them to review our values. And so not only do you fit the behavioral style of the seat that we're trying to put you in, but we want you to be able to be a value fit for our organization. We've all gone through companies and been around people that we didn't align from a value standpoint, and it doesn't work out long term. And so we want people to understand what our values are. And the exercise that we ask people to do is go on our website, review our values, and email us and let us know how you feel about them. And we want to know which value or how you align with the values that we've set. And we want you to be able to articulate that. So you know that leadership to us is not, the Webster Dictionary version of leadership. It's what we've defined leadership as, and what John's talked about vocation, and whenever Lauren talks about legacy and Becky talks about teamwork. That's how we interpret those values. We want you to align with those. And if you don't, it's okay. But we want to know that ahead of time. And so I think that part of our hiring process also is hugely important too.
And I like giving an assignment and see how they respond too for the role. Because if you have that one person that we need to bring somebody in that needs to be hitting the ground running, and you give them and they're like, which one? How many sentences? Do I need to do this? Oh, I didn't submit this for 1 week because I was overwhelmed. All right, boo, you're not going to make it here. This ain't for you. Yeah. Whether you get the person that we literally have somebody, we did offer him a job later because we didn't have a position, but his response to our values was so good that was like, as soon as we have a position, we're offering him a job. The jerk went and started working somewhere else so he can call us later when he wants to leave. But it tells you a lot about a person and how they respond to a task, just number one, because I don't know that most of the entrepreneurs we work with, we have to coach them through that, right? They're like, I just need somebody to come in and help me. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to train them? And what systems do you have in place that you can show them? Well, they just need to figure it out. Well, if you find that person, they're going to be running their own company because they're you. Yeah. So be prepared to give all the instruction and direction. And you have to know that when you bring somebody on, your life is about to get 10 times harder for the next 3 months. But that success that you're going to have after the 3 months of training is going to be beautiful. So if you go into the hiring process knowing that, you're happy. If you go in to hire somebody, you're going to be a terrible leader that's just going to run through a bunch of people that are never going to make you happy because you have unrealistic expectations.
So hiring process critical, clear expectations when people get hired. We give them the people analyzer. We call it people analyzer, just a written document showing their expectations. We have an accountability chart with single point accountability, which is huge. I also think that our humility level, I don't say it any other way, our desire for us, the four of us, to get better and to learn and to get feedback from our employees goes a long way. And, we leave every review with the question of how can we be better business owners and be better leaders for you. And I think that allows our employees to feel as though they can be direct with us. I mean, we've had people send us direct emails and say, I think this needs to be done different or better. And sometimes it's hard to hear that kind of stuff and it takes you back, but it's important for us to hear and our employees to feel comfortable being honest with us. And in those reviews, when we're asking for feedback, we're also asking them things like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And our purpose literally is not only to help our clients succeed, but to help our employees succeed. And so we're creating that environment, and I think that also goes a long way in our hiring process whenever we are direct with our employees about asking for feedback and then asking them, what do you want out of not only this job, but for your life so that we can help you accomplish that? I think that's huge.
Yeah. Leadership's a relationship. And so you have to be willing to want to be the, bringing more into that relationship all the time. So if we're not asking how we're doing, then we're, at least half of the problem if something doesn't go well, right? I mean, so one, you need that feedback. Two, culture is only built if you truly embody your values. And so we need that pulse check. Like, are we truly living our values? I think one of the best compliments, the three of us were sitting in the meeting with Kyle's when he said, like, it's so cool because you are who you say you are. And I was like, oh, cool. Kind of say that again. It was like the simplest compliment. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
Because we do 30, 60, 90, right? Jared's just talking about the review process. No matter what, everybody gets 30, 60, 90. They have an opportunity, and we tell everybody at all times that we can continue that. They can call, they could throw something on our calendar. You have access to our calendar, and we'll always sit down and do that review process with you. But I mean, that's almost more important to me because their feedback is directly seen in our operating system by the metrics that they follow, right? And if we have a value misalignment, we're going to tell them immediately. So it's like their feedback is going to be consistent and ongoing. But how often do they get the chance to raise their hand and say, I got a problem with you, right? And that's not easy for somebody to do. You can talk all day and say, I have an open door policy, but do you?
Sure.
Right? Like your door may be open, but are you truly mentally and emotionally available to people? Is that a thing? Becky talked about that. We were laughing about it in our office today because she worked for somebody in the past. And he was like, he wasn't approachable. Like it wasn't anybody that I could ever talk to.
He was very nice and very smart and everything. And his door was always open. But whenever you would go in to ask him a question, he was so distracted with other work and stuff. It wasn't like anything productive. So it's like, sure, your door's open.
Yeah, you're truly available for those people to give you feedback. And so hiring, clear expectations, single point accountability, our review process is important. And I think that the last thing is that the way that we set up our structure in which we bonus our employees, I think is huge too. And not to get too much in the weeds on that, but it's more important that the organization is growing and hitting its goals before the individual performance of an employee. Because I feel as though, and organizations I've been a part of in the past, it can get competitive and almost to the point where people will not be willing to support somebody else as they're looking out for themselves. When we're here, not looking at somebody's individual performance all the time, but is our company performing the way that we've expected it to, the way we want it to? That means everybody's kind of pulling their weight, and then we can base our bonuses on values and the way that you carried yourself and the impact that you made, as opposed to, did you just show up every day and maybe hit some metrics and goals that we've set, but you didn't do it in a way that lives our values? And so it allows everybody to kind of work together and create a culture of working as a team. And I think that is, it encourages other people to want to come join our team. So it makes it easier for us to hire people.
It's let's get a bonus, not I want a bonus.
Exactly. And it has had people within our organization bring other people that they know in to come help us get where we're going, because they all know that they're going to be a part of the success going forward. So, I think that if you have a limited mindset that hiring, it can be scary, or you you may be doing it too soon, or you don't know how to be a leader. You just need to look for the right tools and do the right things in order for you to get there. And
You got to put in the work.
Yeah, put in the work, create a plan, and have a system in which you do it. And I think it's important.
And be okay that if it doesn't work out the first time or the second time, that you can't stop trying. You just you'll figure it out.
Yeah. There's going to be failures. That's human nature.
Yeah.
I mean, something can happen to one of your employees in the midst of their employment or to the owner or the leader that can totally change the structure of a relationship. So by all means, changes happen. You can't expect nothing to change, but you got to have something in place to help guide you. And the only other thing I wanted to touch on the bonus structure too is I think so many entrepreneurs that are in the sales side are really good at high productivity. They want everything to be commission based because it motivates them. So they feel that it motivates everyone. Kind of like running your business under your love languages. And I watch people do that often, and then they just fail and fail over and over again because they're not truly looking at what motivates each individual and key player that they're bringing in. And sometimes those commission environments are so uncomfortable and challenging to some of the employees that are key people that you need that they're absolutely miserable. And the DISC assessment, the one that we use, because there's multiple DISC assessments. So Abelson DISC assessment is the one that we use. In the back, it actually shows you all of those motivators. And so we're able, if we're having trouble with someone, to truly talk to them and see what would help them. And sometimes, just like your love language could be quality time, that person may just want more time with you. Becky's really good at this. Like, she may not be the big outspoken leader, but she's the one that's going to say, hey, do you want to go to lunch today? And she'll do that once a month with the people, knowing that they get joy out of having time and having Becky's ear. And so she'll have lunch with them, and that will motivate them more than the bonus would. Right? It definitely motivates them more than if you put them on commission structure and they'd be crying like, oh gosh, I got to pick up the phone.